This podcast is brought to you by On Track Studio.
The intention of today's podcast is going to be to really help you figure out and identify in yourself what sort of birth you desire and if Birth Circle is right for you. So Birth Circle is our new online course. It is the most in-depth service that we provide for birth preparation. So it includes absolutely everything and anything that I have to say, think, or feel about birth and how to prepare for birth. So it's all inclusive of our physical preparation, our mental preparation, and our birth partner preparation. And yes, it's the bee's knees. I'm so excited to launch this. I am so excited about it because I often feel like I just have so much to say about birth and prep and interventions and all sorts of things, and it can be really hard to be always time limited, and I feel like this is going to be such a great in-depth course to get the most ultimate amount of clarity around birth for you and your partner and to get that really ultimate birth preparation experience. So who is Birth Circle for? The mamas who will come to Birth Circle, what do they value? They value a natural, minimal intervention, physiological birth experience. They hold value to that. It's not their only value, but they hold value to that. They hold value to being able to make their own decisions that, yes, are aligned with their values, but are also really backed by evidence and information. They enjoy and value being able to make a decision that feels good to them, as well as is backed by evidence and good quality information and is logical at the same time to them, logical to them, that is. They also really value having an empowering birth where they are in control and they are confident in themselves and their choices, including the birth partner. And I did control in quotation marks there because by control, I don't mean controlling birth. We all know we can't control birth. But my goodness, we can control a lot when it comes to birth in the sense of making our own decisions and the birth preparation that drastically influences your birth experience. So our Birth Circle mamas do really value holding on to control of what they can and fully surrendering of what they can't control. Our Birth Circle mamas also really value their partner being super involved in the experience of pregnancy prep and birth, and it being a really wonderful connecting time where it's taken two to make a baby, it'll take two to prepare and birth the baby, and then it will take two to parent the baby. They are completely on the same team. They are completely on the same page. They are in this together and they are aligned in their values towards birth and how they want to birth. They are fully supported and backed up by their birth partner. And that's something that every single one of our Birth Circle mamas would absolutely value. Okay, so how do we go about doing that? So if you already align with those values that I just said, you align with the values of Birth Circle. However, do you like the way that we teach things? Do you learn in this way? Does your partner align with this way? We're going to talk about a bunch of methods that we do throughout our Birth Circle course so that you can help decide if it aligns with you. So first of all, we have the birth partner integration and the natural birth contingency protocol. So I'm going to explain exactly what that is. The biggest struggle that I see dads work through during birth is we come up with, all these beautiful plans in pregnancy. We come up with all these ideals. And a lot of the time in birth workshops, they will develop this kind of one road way of birth. So when they get to the actual process of labor and birth and something outside of the plan happens that we couldn't predict or didn't predict, something outside of the plan happens that we weren't hoping for, and you may be offered a vaginal exam, a CTG, a breaking of the waters, some syntocinon. There could be a plethora of things that may pop up that are suggested to you to do. And this might not be suggested. This might be just said, oh, we are going to do this now. And that could be the way that something's explained. And then the birth partner might think something along the lines of, oh, I know we didn't want vaginal exams, or we wanted a minimal amount of vaginal exams, or we didn't want CTG monitoring unless it was medically necessary. And then he might even say, or she, to the midwife, oh, we didn't want many vaginal exams. And then it might be backed up with the terminology of, yeah, but this is recommended care. This is required. This is something that we really strongly suggest. And in that position, the birth partner can feel really stuck between a rock and a hard place. They can feel really lost, as in like, well, who am I to say whether it's necessary or not? I know that these guys know more than me to say that it's necessary or not. And in that circumstance, that can make them feel really difficult. They feel as in, I don't know the right decision to make here. And it can feel like the weight of the world on their shoulders. And I've definitely even been in that position myself, where you don't know what the woman wants in this individual specific scenario. You've not spoken about it beforehand, and you don't know what the right decision is. You don't really understand what's medically necessary. You don't really understand what she would want in this scenario. So you kind of end up just going with the flow. Going with the flow in birth, in a hospital setting, is a recipe for a cascade of intervention. And I'm going to tell you what that is in a second. But when we don't know, and the dad has the weight of the world on his shoulders, not knowing what the right decision is, he doesn't want to make the wrong decision. He doesn't want to cause harm to the mum or baby from his decision. He doesn't want to, after birth, have the woman, ask him, oh, why did you let them do that to me? We talked about this. We wouldn't have done that. Like, I wouldn't have wanted that. Why did you let that happen? That is a dad's worst fear. That is a birth support's worst fear. And it can feel terrifying in the moment of birth. It can feel terrifying and so heavy and stressful in that moment. And that's something that us here at Natural Birth Co, we really help our dads avoid. And you know how we do this? We come up with our birth contingency plan. So we have, yes, your most ideal birth experience. If everything goes swimmingly and beautiful, then we'll go ahead with this, train of thought. However, if something was to pop up, and there's a bunch of, common variations of normal that can pop up throughout your birth experience, that we can absolutely preempt and make value-based decisions on in pregnancy, so that your birth partner knows exactly what to do during birth. So, for example, I'm going to shoot out some examples that will commonly pop up. A cervical lip during the pushing phase. The contractions can slow down. You may have meconium in the liquor when the waters break. You may even get offered admission vaginal exams, admission CTGs, admission breaking of the waters that's casually posed to speed labor up. And your birth partner doesn't know the difference between, in our birth plan, it only says if this is medically required. How the heck is he supposed to know if it's medically required or not? He doesn't know that. So we come up in pregnancy with a really clear plan of when is a vaginal exam okay and when is it not okay. Specific examples of when it's okay, when it's not okay. When am I willing to have the intervention and when am I not? When is the risk of the intervention worth the risk of not having the intervention? That is the most important question to constantly ask yourself in pregnancy when you're making decisions, and also throughout the process of birth. And no matter how big or small the intervention may seem or may be presented to you, it is a big decision. The intervention's intervention. If something's posed to you as small, it is so important to still accept or decline it with intention. Accept or decline it with your value-based decision-making process. So your value-based decision-making process is something we go through in Birth Circle, and you're making this process and we follow this particular framework, but you do it considering three main things. You do it considering, one, what your healthcare professional suggests and recommends, because it is important. That could be the midwife looking after you. It could be me. It could be your GP. Also considering your own research, because what your healthcare providers provide to you is often biased to the decision that they want you to make. And thirdly, your own values. So you could have two couples presented with the exact same decision and the exact same information and research and make two totally different decisions in the end based on their values. And that's okay. That's normal. That's the whole freaking point. So that value-based decision-making process as well. And also with one-on-one time that you'll get with me through the birth circle, you'll be able to really hone in on these decisions and get some sort of guidance if you need, especially for specific things on what aligns with you and what doesn't. So we can preempt decisions, all those things that I listed before with the cervical lip, the meconium in the water, etc. You can preempt what you want to happen when any of those things will potentially happen. And your birth partner, you'll be making that plan together in pregnancy, and he will feel so much more confident, so much more excited, so much more sure of himself during the process of birth, so much more sure of the decisions and the process during birth, because he is so aware that as soon as labor starts and as soon as things are, full on, you're contracting regularly, all that sort of stuff, he is fully aware of the fact that it is his job to be making the decisions from then on, because you do not have the capacity, you do not have the mental capacity when you're laboring and you've got all those hormones on board in your mind, clouding your frontal lobe, clouding your logical brain. You are not able to make logical decisions. You're not able to analyze a situation. You are not able to, think about research or think about what you were wanting. You are very much in your intuitive mind right now. So that, again, you are just going to go with the flow in that state if that responsibility is left in your hands. And he's very much aware of that. So he needs to be able to go in feeling confident in himself that he knows what the heck to do and what the heck he needs to do with his decision making. And even if something pops up that you haven't preempted, you haven't looked at in pregnancy, and it's just completely random, because he's been with you throughout your pregnancy, making your decisions together about all sorts of different things, and say if this situation, what intervention are we happy to accept or decline, and if we get an intervention, what are we going to do with it, etc. He is going to feel so much more confident, so much more aware, and so much more informed if something was to pop up left to field, but he's got a really great foundation and understanding beneath him to go ahead and make a decision about that thing. He honestly will. I see this time and time again. So many times couples will be messaging me early in pregnancy being like, we have no idea what's going on. Attend our birth workshop, not have any idea what a cervix is or a placenta or a vaginal exam or anything about anything, which is normal and that's okay. And they will get to that stage when they're just about to go into labor, they're at the end of their pregnancy, and they are confident, they are excited, they are ready. They will go through the process of birth knowing exactly what to say yes to, exactly what to say no to, exactly how they want to accept things, and be really freaking phenomenal at, one, following a birth plan that's written down and just telling them what to say and do, and two, making their own decisions if things pop up, and making their own decisions about, what do we want as a couple in this moment based on all the information that I have. So another great tool that our birth partners learn in Birth Circle that is absolutely crucial to having a natural minimal intervention physiological birth is what to do when the panic sets in. Rhea Dempsey calls it a crisis of confidence. I call it the edge of tolerance. There is going to be a time, almost definitely, that throughout labor, the woman will reach a point of panic. She'll feel doubtful. She'll feel fearful. She'll feel like she can't do it anymore. She doesn't want to do it anymore. It's all too much. It's all too overwhelming. And for whatever reason, in any way, I don't care how it happens, I want to stop feeling this labor. I want this baby out. It is almost inevitable to have that happen. It's very intense, and she's very convincing at the time. Now, the last thing that woman needs when she is in that state, because she will often translate that to say, I want the epidural. She will often translate it to, I want the epidural. Before the epidural existed, she would just say, I can't do this anymore, etc., etc. And we would just support her, reassure her, you can do this, da-da-da, because there was no other option. She had to do it. However, now These women are going through pregnancy not wanting the epidural. They're reaching this natural physiological point where they feel doubtful, they feel fearful. So their natural response is to ask for the epidural because they know it's right there. They know that in that moment they can tap out if they want to. They can stop feeling their labor experience if they want to. They can just get the epidural. And in that moment, when that woman is feeling down, she's feeling fear, she's feeling like she can't do it anymore, the last thing she needs from her birth partner is confirmation that she can't do it anymore, affirmation that she's not strong enough, that she doesn't have to do it anymore. And yes, let's get you the epidural. She needs from her birth partner complete belief, complete confidence in her that she can do it, that she wants this, that she has got what it takes, that she can handle this, she can handle birth. That is what she needs. She doesn't need someone to confirm that she can't. It's totally a different thing we don't want to deprive the woman of her rights as well in having an epidural. She's absolutely allowed to change her mind. But a lot of the time, that isn't what she's saying she wants. A lot of the time, she's saying she wants that because she feels scared and she feels like she can't do it anymore. She feels like she's not strong enough. So it's like you imagine you are training for some really big sports event. You're trying to lift something really heavy and you are getting to the heaviest weight. You're in competition. This is the make and break. It's getting really hard. You've been going heavier and heavier and heavier over hours. And you have been saying, you've been dreaming for ages that you want to get to that 150 kilos or whatever it is. And you were so close, you were so there, but you have this stage of feeling doubtful, like I can't do it anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm over it. I'm done. This is too hard. I don't feel I can do it. And your birth partner's like, yeah, or your coach in this circumstance, this metaphor, is saying, yeah, let's get a forklift and lift it for you. Don't worry about it, babe. You've tried hard enough. Yeah, you might feel grateful in that second. However, afterwards, you're like, man, I really wanted to do that. I really wish that someone believed in me. I really wish that someone reaffirmed me that I could do it. I could have done it. I was just tired. It was hard. I was in this normal physiological process of overwhelm. And my fears were confirmed by my coach or my birth partner. And so many of our mamas have said afterwards, yeah, of course I asked for the epidural, didn't get it, feel fine. I was stoked about it. I'm glad no one gave it to me when I asked out of a place of desperation. That is a completely normal and, wonderful process of birth. Now, another teaching method that we do in Birth Circle, all with the intention to help you have this normal physiological birth, good decisions, birth partner integration, etc., is our minimal medical intervention protocol. Now, this is specifically avoiding the cascade of intervention. So I know I've mentioned this before. I'm going to explain to you exactly what it is. The cascade of intervention is essentially when we accept one intervention and simultaneously it leads to another, which leads to another, which leads to another, which leads to another. Before you know it, we are lying on our back, feet up in stirrups, straps on our belly, numb for the waist down, thinking, how the heck did we even get here? And it was that very first intervention that makes us discover something, that we then need to do something else, which we then find out that there's something here, so we then need to do something else. And if we avoided that first thing, then we wouldn't have ended up at that end result. And for some reason, the cascade just goes and goes and goes, and it can be so hard to stop when it's on a freaking roll. So really avoiding this cascade of intervention. This cascade of intervention definitely catches lots of mums and dads off guard. Now, I see this at the hospital happen when people come in with this kind of one ideal, this one plan, this one way, these one small group of ways to cope with pain and labor, and things don't go to that plan. That one plan can be put off track so easily. It can be just completely mitigated before labor even starts a lot of the time. And that is where these things can unfold. And this is what I find when people come into hospital after other birth workshops, is they often have this one ideal of birth going completely and utterly natural with zero intervention. It goes quickly. Nothing pops up out of the blue. And they have a couple of tools to help them cope with pain and labor. This might be some massage, some tickles, some meditation, some affirmations, and it's all really lovely. But when push comes to shove, it's often not enough. When push comes to shove, there's often something that pops up or something that's recommended that you don't know what to do, so you accept it and it leads from one thing to another. And this is something that when I've created Birth Circle, I've really gone in with the intent to avoid/minimize that, to completely avoid the cascade of intervention, to make every single intervention that's done, if any is done, a very conscious and aware and intentional choice by the parents, not just because one thing's led to another. I really don't like that, and I really don't want that. Not that the intervention's the problem, and not that it matters if you do end up on your back with your legs up, etc. If that's like what had to happen, and that is the decisions that you made with intention that has got there, and that's just how birth had to go for you, then that's fine. It's when you kind of are left in this state of being startled, being like, what the heck? How did this even happen? And sometimes you're there, and sometimes I'll see it, and it's like, nothing's even wrong, and we're here. How did that even happen? And it just goes one thing to another. That is what I really wanted to avoid in this birth circle. Okay, so let me get into it. So it can be a bit hard to imagine, but let me just paint a little bit of a picture. So say if you've got, this one plan, these couple of techniques, etc. that I was talking about before, and then something can pop up. So what that can look like is your waters break and there's meconium in the light cord. So then we recommend a CTG. This could look like you're laboring for more than 16 hours. So then we recommend a CTG. This could look like you coming in, something funny happening, and us recommending a vaginal exam before one's due, or us recommending a vaginal exam just because it's due, right? This could look like mum getting a temp in labour. This could look like your water's breaking and labour not starting. This could look like having an anterior cervical lip when you start pushing. These things happen, and they can be quite normal a lot of the time. And a lot of the time, they can be no big deal at all. And we need to know what to do when these common things pop up during your birth experience. And your partner needs to know what you want to do if and when that was to pop up. What interventions do you want to accept? And what interventions do you want to decline? The interventions such as CTGs, vaginal exams, breaking of the waters, when are you willing to accept those things? In what situations are they okay? And in what situations are they not okay? And being super duper clear with what that is. And that will drastically decline the amount of intervention that you will receive in later. Drastically decline. And that will stop the cascade in the sense of, if you accept a CTG because that's what's safest, it doesn't mean that you also receive X, Y, and Z. Because, oh no, we said no to vaginal exams unless we're in this scenario. Even though we've got a CTG, we're still not in that scenario, so we're declining. And you have to be really clear. You have to be really clear when creating your birth preferences. You have to be really clear in your communication to the midwives and doctors. And we practice all of that in Birth Circle, not only creating the plan, but how do we communicate our desires and how do we say no to things? Because that can be really hard. And I struggle to say no to things if I'm looking after women and my bosses are telling me things and I'm like, she said no. It's a scary thing. And we need to learn how to communicate that. And we need to realize, we're not birthing to make friends. We're not birthing to be liked. And it's okay to be annoying. We can be annoying in birth. So let me check back up as to where I was up to. So in the medical intervention, minimal medical intervention protocol, what we're doing is we are, first of all, avoiding what can make these situations arise in the first place. So for us, that looks like avoiding obstruction. Now, obstruction can be for a few reasons. Obstruction can be the pelvis being closed, the pelvis being closed, which is minimizing the space that the baby has to move down. And the way that we get out of that is yoga and Pilates in pregnancy, and also massive active position movements during birth that are really conducive towards creating space in the pelvis. The second thing is making sure that we have plenty of space in the pelvis and there's no tight ligaments in the pelvis that are like a closed gate in the pelvis, not allowing your baby to move down. So we do this through doing body balancing during pregnancy and having really balanced ligaments during pregnancy, and then you don't even have to think about it during birth because there's plenty of space, plenty of stretch, plenty of balance and length in the ligaments within the pelvis. And the third thing is making sure we have a really great hormonal flow during birth with your partner learns exactly how to do that, so that we have fantastic, strong, regular contractions. We need good, solid contractions during birth to allow baby to move down. We need good, solid contractions. And that is from having a fantastic hormonal flow during birth, which is conducive to the environment that you're in, the people that are around you, how people are talking to you, what's going on. And that is all your birth partner's responsibility to maintain and to withhold. You just need to do it. You just need to be in the zone. You need to let your labor go. You just need to surrender to it. And you practice that during pregnancy, getting rid of fears, getting rid of doubts, so you can really be in the labor experience. So by the time labor comes, you're already ready for that, and it is the birth partner's role to stop anything from interrupting that space, to stop anything from disturbing that space, to stop anything from pulling you out of that surrendered space in your intuitive mind. So first of all, we learn how to get rid of the obstructions. Second of all, we preempt a lot of these potential things that may pop up and what you want to do about them. Do we want to accept an intervention for this, that, and the other? And then thirdly, we also know how to navigate interventions. So interventions aren't bad. They're not good. They're not bad. They just are. And they can often save lives, but they are definitely overused. So if we accept one because it is what's safest for you and your baby, because it is aligned with your values, that is wonderful. When we receive that intervention, how can we negate some of the negatives that come with it? How can we make that intervention least impactful to your natural birth as possible, right? How can we receive the pros and minimize the cons of that intervention? When I'm thinking of this minimal medical intervention protocol, a particular couple comes to mind. Their name's Ellie and Tom. They're absolutely fucking divine. And they are first-time parents. They've come through Natural Birth Code, doing yoga Pilates, doing body balance, and they came and did the birth workshop. And then after the birth workshop, Ellie and I will have these great conversations at yoga about the conversations she's having with her husband, Tom, and they're reading different books and they're going through their birth preferences and they're reevaluating the research that we talked about and their values and having all these fantastic discussions about what they want. And they've got such a clear idea of their birth preferences and what each other's roles are during birth. And it's just wonderful to see. So first of all, they have a really great idea and really great plan on exactly what to do if everything's ideal to avoid obstructions. And then they have a really great idea of when they're willing to accept different interventions and when they're not. So, for example, with them, when they have meconium in the liquor, if the waters break, if it's really thin, they're not going to have a CTG at all. And they're going to be fine with Dopplers, 30-minute Dopplers. If it's really thick, they're going to have a CTG on for an hour, and if the CTG is fine, they're going to take it off. And this is all like different tips and tricks that they learnt in their birth workshop. And then, for example, for other things, with the vaginal exams, they're not going to have routine vaginal exams, but they are willing to have vaginal exams if baby's not moving down, labor doesn't seem to be progressing, and they're sus on baby's head being in a funky position. And they want to see if baby's head's in a funky position, and if it is, they're going to do a bunch of techniques to get it out of that position so that labor can continue. So they have a whole bunch of different plans like that. When am I willing to accept the intervention? When am I not? And then they have the plan of, okay, so let's say the CTG, again as an example, on the instances where they are wanting the CTG, because for them and their values, backed by research, the CTG and the risk of it is worth the risk of not having the CTG. Okay, so when they get the CTG, they have decided we're going to have the sound completely off. because that beeping is not going to be conducive to the birth space and the feeling of being undisturbed for Ellie. And 2, they're going to have a sheet over the screen so that not only Ellie is not distracted by the CTG, but nor is Tom. This is something that I see with CTGs, for an example, all the time, is that when it's on, everyone's staring at it. Everyone is watching it and being like, oh, that was a big contraction. How was that for you? Because they can see the numbers popping up rather than paying attention to the actual woman. So this is a real top tip for all you dads. If there's a CTG in your birth, don't you dare look at the darn thing. It does not need to be looked at. The midwife is looking at it. She's interpreting it. She's analyzing it. We don't even know what we're looking at. Pay attention to the woman, that she is your only concern. Don't worry about the CTG. Try to let it take as least of your attention as possible. Mama needs all your attention. Okay, so for them, that's what they're going to do. For that, they also say, because then the midwife can look at the CTG on her actual computer, etc., etc. So all of these different interventions, there are things, even the epidural, there are so many things we can do to minimize the cons that come with the epidural or with the intervention in general. So having a really clear idea on what that is, and that's what Ellie and Tom have done so well, spelt out, okay, how are we going to avoid these things in the first place? When am I willing and when am I not willing to accept these interventions? In what exact scenarios? And when I do accept these interventions, how do I want that to look? Because that is going to be what stops that cascade of intervention. That is going to be what gets you the most minimal intervention birth that is possible for you. Completely fueled by value-based decisions backed by research. That is so, so, so important. And I want you to know that, we can have this epic goal of a natural birth, and then say if it doesn't happen for you, say if, all these things keep popping up, which to your values are detrimenting the safety of you and your baby, and you end up having these interventions, that is fine. And you feel after birth, if you have chosen intentionally each of these interventions and it is aligned with you and your values, you feel completely different after birth. You feel good. You feel happy. You feel empowered. You feel confident, and you feel stoked about your birth because it went how it had to go. Rather than, the difference is, even if the outcomes was the same, the feeling is different if you were just kind of ushered into one thing followed by another, and none of it was intentional and none of it was your choice, and we kind of like offload the responsibility onto someone else, and then afterwards are kind of regretful on that fact. It is a completely different experience. So that's our minimal medical intervention protocol. So if you have ideals and you value having a natural minimal intervention vaginal birth, if you value making evidence-based, value-based decision, and you really value your birth partner being integrated with you in this birth experience, and you liked these learning techniques that we just went through, then Birth Circle is the course for you. Birth Circle is for the mama who wants tangible steps, holistic practices, expert support, and prepare your mind and body for a progressive birth experience. It is honestly the most in-depth, integrative, supportive birth preparation service that we provide here at Natural Birth Co. And it is your one-stop shop for all of your birth preparation needs. Physical, mental, birth partner prep, everything is there. You won't need to do anything else at all. You deserve to feel confident leading up to and during your birth experience. You deserve to feel excited for birth. You deserve to feel brave and courageous in the lead up, and during the process of birth. You deserve to be almost excited for the physical challenge that is labor, and even more so the mental challenge that is labor. And most of all, you deserve your birth to be the most transformative and empowering experience you'll ever have. Birth Circle will kick off on August the 6th for our very first session. It consists of 8 modules running fortnightly on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. every fortnight. The second Tuesday of the fortnight will be a live Q&A as well. The modules themselves are live, the Q&A are live, and this is where you will get your really individualized support where I answer your specific questions to your individual circumstances. You will also get a included one-on-one time with me throughout your pregnancy experience to get super individualized support on, it could be a specific fear you have, a struggle, or a specific complication you might have in your pregnancy, or even just to get super clear on some value-based decisions that you're having a bit of difficulty in making. This can be with just you, or it can be with your birth partner. If you want more information or you want to book, there is a link in the show notes, as well as if you were still a little bit on the fence and you want a little bit more of a taster after this podcast, we have a freebie of one of our modules, a section of the module called How to Cope with Pain in Labor. So you can get that also in the show notes.